Hey, dear listeners, welcome to another episode of Business Transformation with FBSPL, the Insurance Edition. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting a highly experienced insurance professional and business owner, Mr. Marco Warner, the Chief Sales Officer and founding member of Trustpoint Insurance LLC. With over 30 years of insurance and business ownership experience, Marco has a wealth of knowledge and expertise in navigating the complexities of risk management and the insurance domain as a whole. He's a certified insurance counselor and is passionate about making the insurance buying and managing process simpler and easier for his clients and sales teams. Under his leadership, Trustpoint Insurance has experienced tremendous growth, with revenue increasing from $4 million to $11 million in just 5 years. Marco and his team has achieved this by prioritizing customer experience and utilizing the latest technology to enhance the insurance buying process for their clients. Apart from his professional achievements, Marco is committed to serving his family, church, and the community. He has held leadership positions in various organizations in his hometown area and is always excited to see young people getting involved in the insurance industry. So sit back, relax, and listen in as we chat with Marco about his journey and insights into the ever-changing world of insurance. Welcome, Marco.
Thank you. That was very flattering. I appreciate that very much. And I was one of the founding members of Trustpoint. So my business partner, Bob Aako, was a key part of that as well. And we have really been just excited to see the transformation that our organization has taken place over the last few years.
Amazing. So as we are talking about it, the partners and how it all started. So can you tell us a bit about your background and how you got started in your current role?
Well, my wife hates it when I start out with when I was born, right? So we'll kind of skip that part. But I grew up in a small town in Southwest Virginia, and my grandfather was in the insurance business. And my grandfather always said that I was the only person that he ever knew that said he was going to grow up to be an insurance salesman. So, we don't hear that very often out there. But I got out of high school. I went to Virginia Tech. I married my wife while I was still there. And I came back to, she and I came back to Richlands, and we have never looked back. And this business has been so good to me. I learned, out of a phone book on how to sell insurance, and that's not fun. I did these little things to reward myself for, making X number of calls a day, and didn't have a whole lot of training or anything. Basically here's the phone book, go sell. Well, what am I selling? That's a hard thing to overcome. So my success took a little longer than going to work for a large organization where you have that kind of formal training. But I had the best experience because I had a grandfather who was one of the wisest and smartest men that I ever knew teach me some of the ropes. So that's how I got started. We were a personal lines agency at the time. And when I came to the agency, my mother was working here as well. And we were writing a few small, what we call truck mines, coal mines in Southwest Virginia, Southern West Virginia, and Eastern Kentucky. And so I really went out, caught on a lot of those mines, rode a lot of truck mines, got in, deeply involved in the coal business at the time, writing insurance for them. Met a few really good lawyers and a few people that took me under their wing and helped me develop some business acumen, and also helped me understand the contractual transfer of risk. And I appreciate those people a lot and how they helped me through my career. And my mother and I bought the agency, and then in '90, right after we bought the agency, the coal market collapsed. and a lot of our business went out the door. Not because we lost it to competition, but just because it was gone. And it taught me a very valuable lesson at that time. And unfortunately, my mother and I had to sell the agency so that we could pay my grandfather back. And I went to work for a publicly traded company. I learned a lot, there as well about how to manage an agency. I was a profit center manager for this small agency in Richlands, and I learned about the economics of an agency and things to look for, things to kind of overcome the simplification that my grandfather had given me. Not that it wasn't great information, but he was always, well, Granddaddy, we're a little behind this month. He said, well, you can always fix it by just selling more, and that's a great approach, and it's true. But
Right.
There's some other things you need to apply to the industry as well. So sold to this company. They came out with this thing where they wanted all their offices to be 40% operating profit. We really valued what we did for our customers, and it was going to make it very difficult for us to do that in a smaller office like we had. And we got a new regional manager, and I think he was going through a crisis of conscience at the time. And so he went to them and asked him if he could purchase these offices in Southwest Virginia. Called me, asked me to join him, and I said, okay, but here's a few things that I have to have, and haven't regretted it one bit. And we started Trustpoint in 2006. We floundered around a little while. We were making money. We were not working all that hard, and we'd gotten back into the energy business again with the coal bed methane extraction business, pipeline business, basically, pipeline construction, drilling, that sort of thing. And then that market collapsed again in 2016. And it was a moment in time which you had to decide, am I going to sell or am I going to change what I'm doing? And it was an unbelievable wake up call for us. And, we knew we were doing a lot of the right things. We had embraced technology. We were ahead of the curve in all of that, in our opinion, even from where we came from. We had better skill set at utilizing technology in the sales process. And so we buckled down. We made a plan. We changed some things that we were doing, and we've never looked back. And I mean, from that time, we've grown significantly. And there was a little bit of acquisition, but mainly organic growth. And we seem to be good at what we do, and our customers, tell us that they like us. So we're having a good time, and I love it. And I'd like to say one more thing, KB, before I end this part. This business can give you anything that you're looking for. I mean, you take somebody like me. I've never had to leave my community. I've never had to leave my family, except for some travel. But I've been able to do it from a small town of 4,500 people. And I've sat in office tower buildings and presented presentations to boards of directors, and I've flown to a different spot and sat on, the tracks of a dozer and did $1 million deal. And I mean, this business is just so unbelievable for somebody that embraces it.
So, in a way, there are no limitations. You are the only
None.
limit. If you cross by yourself, you can achieve anything. And
Absolutely.
your grandfather sounds like very knowledgeable and interesting person. And I like the thought of if you're falling behind, just get more. And it's the
That's
simplest thing
right.
one can do. And you also talked about self-reward, which I loved actually, and I could recall one quotation on this. It says, "Reward yourself not just for your achievements, but for your efforts and perseverance. Celebrate not just your success, but also your growth and progress." Remember that
Absolutely.
is the true reward is in the journey and not just the destination.
And it doesn't have to be huge either. Simplify it. I mean, for me, I loved coffee, and I would have my cup of coffee in the morning, and I couldn't have my next cup of coffee until I did X number of calls. I mean, simple things like that to motivate yourself to do the things that you don't really want to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. This one is a fun one. If you could insure any fictional character, who would it be and why?
That's an easy one, Wile E. Coyote. And some people may not know who that is, but Wile E. Coyote and the Acme Company. So going back to my grandfather, he always said, write the things that are the hardest to write, that are the most difficult, that nobody else wants, because that's where the most premium's going to be. And with more premium comes more commission.
Wow.
So
Wow.
just think
Good
about
one.
how difficult it would be to write life insurance on Wile E. Coyote and insure the Acme Company.
Wow. Great. Talking about today's world, as they say, it's a soft world, and then there are lots of not soft world, but the market is soft right now. But there are still lots of technological changes and advancement in the industry as well. So, what do you think are the biggest challenges facing the insurance industry today, and how do you see them being addressed in the future?
Well, I've given this question a lot of thought since you sent it to me, and it is. I don't know that you can address all of the challenges that are facing just from a technology perspective, because I think some of the things that we are facing right now in our industry in general, not just the retail side, but the carrier side as well. We're facing an aging workforce, and most of the best knowledge is in those people that are most of the best coverage knowledge is in uh, that age group that is exiting the business here in the very near future,
Yeah.
and that makes it difficult because we have to replace them. And another challenge we face because of that, our brand as an industry is not that great. There's not a lot of children growing up saying, "Oh, I want to be in the insurance industry." And the
True.
thing
True.
is, when people think about it, I think they think about that person down the street selling home and auto, and I love those folks, and there's nothing wrong with that. But that's just a small part of this industry. And I'll give you a really good example of that. So one of the young men in our community was a contractor, and he recently went to work for one of the insurance companies as an adjuster. And he had no desire to be in the insurance industry, and it just sort of fell in his lap. But he now adjusts all of the claims for a specific insurance company in Southwest Virginia, Eastern Tennessee, and Southern West Virginia. He's making more money than he was before, and he's got better hours, and he's got a robust benefit package. And I'm just
Yeah.
so happy for him. And to think about that type of job, that's out there. But going back to your question, in addition to our brand as an industry and how young people perceive it, as well as the aging workforce, emerging risk is also something that is we're going to have to deal with as an industry. I mean, there's things out there right now that scare the fire out of me, but you just have to buckle down and have conversations with people about how are we going to handle this. And I'll give you a quick example of that. In cyber liability, something I never thought about, contingent business interruption that you purchase under that. We're seeing the carriers now limit that because of a catastrophic event that might disrupt the entire cyber insurance world, and so they're wanting to put sublimits on that, and we didn't even think about that a few years back, right? I mean,
Right.
it's not something that was talked about at all. So I think emerging risk, social unrest. I mean, how are we
Yeah.
going to deal with some of these things that are happening in the cities from an underwriting perspective to be able to insure that business person for amount of money that they can afford, within their budget. And then in addition to that, social inflation, we're seeing a lot of verdicts happening, those, moving upward, and that trend across the industry is creating a lot of havoc among the actuaries in the insurance industry. And then from a retail perspective, from our side, I think we have the aging ownership. But one of the things I think that is a huge challenge for us is we have a lot of people coming into the industry without any business acumen. And it's a very difficult thing to teach, especially
Right.
to someone who hasn't sat in an owner seat or in a CFO position or one of those positions. And how do people get that, right? How do they develop that? And do you have the patience to allow them, to get there? And then I think because the insurance industry has kind of lagged behind the rest of the world from a technology perspective, I think if you're a retail agent out there, you need to figure out how to apply your own technology and overcome some of the things, that are missing from the people who you're selling product for. Buyer awareness, I think, is another big deal. I think buyers are becoming so aware of what's out there, that buddy system is no longer going to prevail, that people are looking for some way to make this process simpler and easier and have a greater ability to understand how it's applicable to their business, as an example. That's something that I talk about a lot, with my sales team, is put yourself in their seat.
Right. Right. Fantastic. And I can totally relate to a lot of these things. And in fact, the other day I was meeting with one of our partners, and we were discussing that aging workforce is one of the biggest challenge, and the other associated part to it is when the most experienced of the workforce is leaving the industry, there would be a void and a vacuum soon because there is no one apt to train the new joiners to the industry. Even if you see if you want to go to some traditional institutes or something that train you on the insurance world, there are very limited resources out there, just one or two. And I'm talking way ahead of the time, but I just feel like sharing this with you. So we are already in discussion and planning to launch such a place where we can train the new generation within the insurance domain, irrespective of what part they want to go into. But yes, we want to launch an online academy sort of thing where we would be providing the workflow informations, the basics of the industry, and how to go about sales, how to go about servicing, and whatnot. So this is something we are planning to.
Yeah, and I've got mixed thoughts. I mean, we could spend an entire session on this because, part of me says we don't have to teach them anything about insurance. We need to teach them about the buying experience, right?
Right.
And what that looks like. And then you hear people who are that work for a larger agency says, well, that doesn't work when you begin to play upstream from where you are. Well, the fact is it does, because we take accounts from the larger brokers all the time simply because they're not doing the things that need to be done. But then on the other hand, you really need to figure out how to teach them technical skills in a shorter period of time. And these younger folks learn so in such a different way than I did. I'm not going to throw you in that category, but the way that I did. And I learned through experience. And that's just unacceptable nowadays because it takes so much longer, for you to ramp up and become, truly effective in this business than if you gain that knowledge the way you have it. So we're going to have to figure out how to do it from a phone. I think,
Right.
right?
Right. Absolutely. So we touched base technology a little bit. Let's talk more about it. So how has technology impacted the insurance industry? And what new technologies do you see having the greatest impact in the years to come?
Well, obviously the carriers are having difficulty with this, right? I mean,
Yeah.
they have so much information and it's so massive. Being able to turn the direction of that ship takes significantly longer, than uh, more agile and younger, industries do. So it's harder for them. For us on the retail side, it's a matter of, can we make our customer experience better by the utilization of it? And I'll give you, one of my examples that I give. So I got frustrated because I've been going to the same doctor for years, right? And every time I went, I had to fill out the same form. I mean, they asked me my name. They asked me my date of birth. Those things are not going to change, KB. They're the same every single time I
Right.
go in there. And
Right.
then there's 4 or 5 forms you have to fill out. And I was really frustrated about that. And as my life changed and I got a little busier, it became even more frustrating for me. And so I thought about that and how our customers feel about how we transact that business with them on a day-to-day basis. We send them a supplemental application and they
Mhm.
fill it out, and they do that year over year over year. And just a simple thing like adopting a program like Indio. And we were early adopters of that. And we figured out ways to kind of enhance the way we utilize that. And being able to send that to someone and completely change how they deliver that renewal information back to us changes the experience that they have.
Got it.
And that's a very simple part of it, but it's something that there's so many things out there that we can utilize to be able to change the lives of the people we deal with on a day-to-day basis, and we need to embrace that.
Absolutely. I've been to these conferences recently. One was InsurTech, and the other one was Innovation in AI in Insurance. And everyone was talking about Chat GPT and how AI is taking shape and how it can impact the professions and lives of everyone involved across the industries, not just insurance. And I was thinking in my mind that talking about technology is great. However, I feel the adoption of technology is not that great in the insurance industry, and that's something everyone should be discussing on how to adopt those technologies to make ourselves, competitive to the other industries. Relating to your point, the insurance industry is a brand. It's not there. And one of the reasons is it's not pacing up with other industries. It's not as lucrative. It doesn't sound as lucrative as other industries. So I think we should be talking a lot about how to be more agile and adaptive and receptive towards these technologies. Well, great. So, we are talking about young guys who would be joining the industry or who may want to join industry. Uh, what do you think are the most important qualities for someone working in insurance and how they can develop those qualities?
So I think in general, you can have whatever quality you want, and there's a place for you in this industry. I gave you an example earlier. I mean, I never would have thought of that, right? But I think from the standpoint of the retail side, it's different. Obviously, if you're selling something, you have to have certain qualities in order to be successful. But in general, if you want to help people in typically the most dire time of their life when they have a claim and prepare them for that on the front end, there's no limit to what you can do. I mean, you can be basically a hermit and still find a creative job in this industry. So from that aspect, I don't know that there's any one just to join the industry
Right.
that's out there. From the retail side, though, I think it's a little different. I mean, it's forward facing, and I think that on the retail side, especially on the sales side, which is obviously what I can speak to the most, is you cannot have call reluctance. You have to have a willingness to be able to pick up that phone and to call anybody to
Right.
sell them insurance. Now, I say that, but I mean, we have a whole, kind of idea about how we approach it. But the call reluctance is something that you cannot have.
Right.
And a lot of times you can test out in a personality profile, for example, and check all the right boxes, but yet that still is there for someone, and it doesn't perform well on the retail sales side part of it. So call reluctance is a big one. And as I was thinking about the question when you sent it to me, you got to have a belief in what you're selling, right?
Absolutely.
You have to know that it's going to help someone, that what the way that you're doing it and the way that you're going about it is better than anybody else out there, and that you have the resources and the team and all of that behind you. And I've seen people that could call anyone, but yet they didn't have that belief, and therefore they weren't successful in this business. So I think those two things are very important from the sales side of it.
Amazing. And I'll extend this question a bit. I think we already touched upon it, but if we have to particularly talk about what do you think sets successful insurance professionals apart from those who struggle to succeed?
From those that struggle to succeed, again, I think it is getting in front of people, limited pipelines. That's something that is critical, is having that pipeline full constantly. And I think that from the standpoint of what makes people truly successful in this business, and the ones that kind of, you have average, right? And then you've got a little above average, and then you have great. Let's talk about it from $1 million producer perspective. I'll give you a few things. This is a Marcoism, as some of my team members would call on me. But I think that you have to have a Rolodex, and you have to understand how to utilize that Rolodex for the benefit of everybody that's out there that you're doing business with. Now, I can kind of expand on that. And if for those listeners that don't know what a Rolodex is, that's a contact list, right? That's your contact list in your phone. And so this was something that my grandfather taught me early, was how to make connections with people. And when you can figure out, it's not just about the selling of insurance that makes those people great. It's how they utilize everything around them for the benefit of the people that are there. My grandfather was a huge Stephen Covey fan. He always says, you help people get what they want, they'll help you get what you want. And that's what I'm talking about. So you're sitting in a sales meeting, you ask, well, tell me what's on your mind today. And they say something completely different than insurance, but you have a resource in that Rolodex. And if you can pull that out of your mind and go find it, you can solve that problem for someone. So I think that those connections, we talk about them in fancy words and all of that, but the fact is, it's as simple as being able to apply it.
Absolutely. And I think networking and relationship is key to everything, be it business, your personal life, and everything. Fantastic. I understand there are not so many changes in the industry, but the operating procedures, the technology is still there. So how do you stay up to date with the latest trends and developments in the insurance industry? And what resources do you recommend for others who want to do the same?
So I do a daily devotion. I have a friend that has emailed me a daily devotion every year, every day for 20 years. It's amazing.
Wow.
I mean, it is absolutely amazing. He gets up really early. He does his. He sends it to a group of us folks that are on his email list. And after I'm done with that, I do what I call my insurance devotion, right? You have to spend some portion of a day reading up on what's going on, the latest trends, that sort of thing. I make sure that it's not all about insurance and risk management, but also part of it is about what's happening out there in business in general, because you need to keep up with that as well. What are people facing that are sitting on the other side of the table that you're talking with? What are some of those things that are going on? So I make sure that I do that insurance devotion every single day. In addition to that, a lot of my friends and family know that I love podcasts, and when I'm in the car and I've got that windshield time, I listen to podcasts mostly around topics other than insurance. I really like to listen to technology related things, people talking about disruptors, how they're changing this industry or that industry. And like, oh my gosh, why didn't I think of that? I'm fascinated by it. And the other thing that it does for me is it helps keep me sharp at thinking about what can we do in our industry to be ahead of the curve.
Fantastic. Let's touch base on risk management for a while. How do you approach risk management in your work, and what advice do you have for others who are looking to improve their risk management skills?
I say start with the basics, right? Start with the basics. Understand how to transfer risk, how to avoid risk, how to either retain risk or not, risk retention, and then how to prevent risk. And then once you have an understanding of the basics of that, here is one of the things that my grandfather and my mother made me do in the insurance industry. And I think it is so true today for people that are wanting to learn how things work. Find someone that you know that will allow you to come to their business and spend a couple of days, especially in a high hazard type environment where they're dealing with it on a day-to-day basis. Keep your mouth shut, take notes, and learn what it is that person deals with from a true business perspective. After that, take them out to dinner, buy their dinner for doing that for you. And also, take a day or two, come back to that person with questions centered around those four things, right? That they may have missed or whatever. It will give you a time to, kind of think about it. I did this when I was first starting out in my career. I went out and I spent 2 days with a guy that owned a surface mining operation. And it was amazing. Just the things that they deal with on a day to day. I saw things and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they're doing that. So, well, how do you keep that excavator from falling over the side of the mountain or that type of thing? But it sounds simple. But if you can find that person that will allow you to do that, you will learn more in those 2 days than you can out of a textbook.
Amazing. So from the sounds of it, you keep busy with business and traveling. And you did also mention that somehow you keep that balance and you still can provide time to your family, your friends, community. So how do you balance your commitments to your personal life, to your work, to community? And again, what suggestions or advice do you want to give to others who are trying to do so, or they are struggling to have a balance?
Well, KB, I'm not perfect. You can ask my wife and she will tell you. So I don't have all of the answers. But having said that, I would tell you that I kind of failed at it, early in my career. I mentioned that the coal market collapsed. I went out and started writing assisted living facilities, and there wasn't one in Richlands, Virginia. So I had to travel a lot. I had to make up for that loss, and I took away from my family. But my father-in-law, he was my accountability partner at the time, right? He would make me write out these goals and stuff, and then he would challenge me on how I was doing. And we've applied that same thing to how we conduct ourselves in our business. So we do this thing with all of our producers, and we tell them that they're Marco Warner Incorporated or LLC, and they operate under this enterprise, right? So they need to write a business plan, for Marco Warner LLC, and then they need to set professional goals. They need to set personal goals. They need to set family goals. They need to set health goals, and they need to set spiritual goals, and they need to write them out, and then they need to find that accountability partner, and on a regular basis, they need to get with that person, and they need to do this little exercise that we recommend. Am I on track for my goal in each of those categories? And if not, why? And if I am, do I need to readjust my goal? And be deliberate about it. And then it's up to us as leaders to recognize when they're struggling with one, specifically their professional goal. But when you see somebody that you can tell if you're if you're around that person a lot, you can tell if things aren't going well, and just be human and say, hey, what's going on? You seem like you're a little distracted. Is there anything we can do? Have you met with your accountability partner? And that way we're staying out of it, right? You met with your accountability partner and talk through those things. So that's my advice to people.
Amazing. Now, something lighter, something on the other part of you. So, we came to know that you are avid fisherman, in fact, bass fisherman. So, can you share with us your favorite fishing spot and what you love about this sport?
Well, all my friends would tell me to say my favorite fishing spot is in the water, right? But my favorite place to fish is Smith Mountain Lake, right outside of Roanoke, Virginia. It is a beautiful lake. My wife and I have a place up there, and I bass fish there regularly. My favorite time of the year to fish is from about April the 15th to about July the 4th. That's when the shad spawn is on up there. We do a lot of night fishing, and we use topwater baits, and it is exciting to catch 6 or 7 pound largemouth bass on topwater. So, yeah. And I'm a competitive person, so I do a lot of tournaments, and I fish a lot of rodeos, and then I fish a series or two, against people who are better than me, because that only makes you better, right?
Wow. And I promise this is my last one. Say, what's the funniest insurance claim you have ever seen?
The funniest insurance thing. I tell this story all the time. One of my customers called me up one day and he said, "Hey, Marco, if someone cut a tree down and it falls in their house, is that covered?" And I said, "Yes, stupidity is covered." And he said, "Oh, thank God, I got a tree sitting in my living room." I have a few that I can't tell on this podcast, but people can call me and I'll tell them, over the telephone. So.
Well, thank you so much, Marco. This was very interesting. This was knowledgeable, and I'm sure our listeners would, will gain something out of it. And listeners, stay tuned, stay listening to Business Transformation with FBSPL, the Insurance Edition, and we'll meet you soon with another episode of it. Thank you.